Welcome back into the Door Report, episode 275 on a lovely but humid Wednesday evening, July 31st, 2024. Here at the Door Report, we are presented by 615 Collectibles. If you're into sports cards or sports memorabilia, check out 615 Collectibles on eBay for an unmatched selection of sports cards. Shipping is always fast and free. Trevor, you know what time it is. Football.
Football?
Football.
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 All right. It's time.
How you
for
like
some
that,
football.
are you, Gerson?
Starting off hot.
Yeah.
No.
Thanks for finally talking about football.
She did tweet out a picture of herself at fall camp. So she is in attendance at fall camp.
Football.
Giving her no grace. Football.
Football.
It is time to talk football. My dad put out a tweet that was great. Today, July 31st, as we were recording this, is the last day of the last month with no football for the next 7 months.
I can't believe that.
Thank you.
Football.
Thank you. If you believe in God, thank you, God. If you don't, thank you, universe. Thank you. Football is back, Trevor. And on episode 275, we are going to bring up some fall camp storylines.
Dude, we talked about this earlier. I tweeted it out. I don't remember the last time I was this excited to record a TDR because you can feel it in the air. Like, you know that football's close. Like, you can feel it. Like, the fall campus here, like, we're a month away. Literally today, we are a month away. Tomorrow, we'll be less than a month.
Today, as we were recording this, we are 31 days away. Tomorrow, when this is released, we will be Trudell Berry days away, 30 days away from football. Fall camp actually began today. So we have day one reports from fall camp. Obviously, not a lot to learn from those camp reports, and there's not going to be a lot to learn from those fall camp reports, specifically from the Vanderbilt Commodores, keeping things very tight-lipped and continuing to do that, just like they did all summer. But Trevor, we have fall camp storylines, and we're also going to do some individual players to watch and players to follow their progress throughout fall camp. All that and much more coming up on episode 275. But before we get into all that, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Door Report. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. And while you're at it, give our podcast 5 stars and a review on iTunes. It's now time for segment 1. Welcome back into segment 1 of episode 275 of the Door Report. I forgot to do it during the intro. Trevor, I said I was going to do it. We are still recording in front of a blank white wall. The plan is to have actual things and items hung up behind us before the next episode. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition. I finally have things up in my bedroom, stuff on the wall. I think you do as well.
Yep.
We have not made it to the living room, kitchen area yet. And, of course, the studio area. But I'm going to try my best editing with my incredible editing skills to get a Door Report logo right there. So, boom, there's a logo sitting right there above our heads. I'm going to look really, really dumb if I can't figure that out. And it's just a blank wall on YouTube.
The people would understand.
We got a lot of flack for recording in front of a penitentiary wall.
We did. The tweets were really funny, though.
They were solid.
They were very funny tweets. I think that was the only time in the past, 12 months that Vol fans have been funny on Twitter.
It was. Some Vol fans actually had some funny responses. I used the cutout of us to fill in one of those Twitter pictures of what would you do with this space? And I just plugged us in there with no legs.
Banger. Just a shoddy Photoshop job. It makes it look that much better.
Just perfect. Phoebe has joined in the camera view as well. Perfectly placed here in the corner. But Trevor, I talked about in the intro that we're going to get limited information. And specifically, even media personnel have been told they cannot share specifics of players and rotations and different things outside of practice. Aria was asked on Twitter today. Tim Purden said, Would love some insight into the OL rotation if you get a chance. Thanks. And Ari responded with, we're only allowed to share general information from camp, so I can't give specifics on rotations, but I'll definitely have some stuff on the offensive line. Probably not today, but at some point. So we're going to have limited access to actual information unless Barton wants to invite us to a practice again. And then we would also not be able to share any specifics, and it would just be general information. So we're kind of between a rock and a hard place right now.
I mean, we love football so much. We would go and we would sign an NDA, basically like we did last time.
Oh, I mean, they gave us a test run during spring practice.
Well, I think we did really well.
We didn't reveal a thing.
No, we did really good.
Lips are sealed, Barton.
Nothing made Twitter, nothing made pod, nothing made message boards. We were really good. So Barton, if you're listening,
TDR, let us know.
Also,
we both still have our name tags.
Oh, mine's hanging up in my bedroom.
We can just bring our name tags with us. You don't even have to make us new ones, Barton.
I'm a 27-year-old man and I have my name tag in
it
my bedroom. Most people by the time they're this age are having kids and building families. I'm like, no. You know what's going up in my bedroom? My name tag from wherever went to a Vanderbilt spring practice.
Also, most people in their work from home setup have their degrees hung up on the wall, have achievements that they have made hung up around them. Right above my workstation, my work from home desk is that Vanderbilt name tag.
Yeah.
So
I do have my degrees up above my workstation. I have my degrees up, but then everything else is just sort of Vandy-centric in there. I have a Vanderbilt blanket.
No, the only two things hung above my desk in my room are my Vanderbilt name tag and Vanderbilt Hawaiian puka shell. A necklace. Those are the only two things.
With a Vanderbilt Snuggie right there. I used to have that same Snuggie. My mom and dad got me one whenever Snuggies were cool. After the cocktail break, I might just wear it for the rest of the pod.
That's an old Snuggie.
Oh, yeah. I had that exact one.
I think it was a Christmas gift many moons ago.
Yeah. Well, it would kind of fit the vibe that we're going for. I wear a Snuggie. We were talking earlier about maybe we should just pod from your bed one time, just under the covers, dude.
Just pull a Matt and Shane secret podcast.
Yeah,
one
dude.
Under the covers.
That would be kind of sick. I'm not going to lie, dude.
If things get dark enough during football season, we might have to.
Or maybe if they get good.
Either way.
Get good. That sounds like a good time to me, dude.
Jesus Christ.
I'm so back. All I can think about is football, dude. I've never been this back in my life.
With that said, let's get into some fall camp storylines then.
Yeah.
Enough talking about men in beds.
Dude, just dudes being guys.
Trevor, do you want to start out? I've got 4 storylines written here, kind of some broad storylines. Do you want to start out or you want me to start out?
Yeah, do you want to go back and forth?
Yeah, because I think some of these will overlap because they're pretty obvious, and we're going to have to kind of create our own narratives.
Yeah.
And read between the lines from reports out here as well and what Clark Lee says, because I want to keep repeating it because I don't think people have really recognized, the general fan base has not really recognized how tight-lipped they are being compared to last season or the year before.
Like,
the lack of information that is getting out is crazy compared to last season.
Yeah. Like, for those of you that don't know, and most Vandy fans who are very tapped in do know this, that's the reason they didn't have a spring practice is because they didn't want any of that stuff getting on camera. Spring game. They didn't want any of that getting on camera. So they are very, 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 basically the practice facility is Fort Knox. But I do have some storylines going into it. Ours are gonna differ a little bit, but obviously there's one in particular that's the biggest storyline of them all that everybody and their mom knows about.
Go ahead and get that one out of the way because I think I know what you're referring to. The quarterback situation.
That is the quarterback situation.
The quarterback battle. Clark Lee has stated it is an open competition.
It's not.
I don't know how much I believe that.
It's not.
But he has stated it is an open competition between 2 transfer quarterbacks. Diego Pavia from New Mexico State, Conference USA Offensive Player of the Year. And then you have Nate Johnson, a Utah transfer, with all of the physical abilities and physical gifts that you want in a quarterback. 6'4", runs like a 4.5 40. Everybody that's played NCAA, you've subbed Nate Johnson and he has a 95 speed on the game. How do you see the quarterback, quote unquote, battle playing out? Do you even think it is a real battle?
No, dude, I don't think it's a real battle. I think it's Diego Pavia all the way. Did they possibly give Nate Johnson a lot of money to come to Vanderbilt? Probably. Was Utah very upset that Vanderbilt got away with Nate Johnson? Absolutely. Do I still think it's Diego Pavia? 110%. I think whenever you look at the way that this team is built and the way we think the offense is going to function, and just whenever you look at the staff around him, whenever you have that many guys from New Mexico State, that many transfers from New Mexico State, the way that New Mexico State played ball last year, you don't go in and put the non-New Mexico State quarterback in. Does that make sense?
Well, I think it's the players. It's as the football on our setup here rolls over. It's the players. It's the coaches. It's everything.
I think it's the coaches more than anything.
It feels like that continuity of coaches. That's what you always hear about is new coordinators. It's going to take a while for these guys to get settled into the new system. Mm-hmm. Diego Pavia already knows the new system.
Absolutely.
Now, a little bit of that is counteracted because Diego Pavia was a late enrollee. Nate Johnson was an early enrollee, so he had spring practice running this offense. But I do still think Diego Pavia has the upper hand in this QB battle.
Yeah.
But with that said, I do think we will see both quarterbacks week 1.
I think situationally you'll see Nate Johnson all season long.
I think you will see more Nate Johnson, even when Diego Pavia wins this QB competition. I think you will see more Nate Johnson even than just situational packages. I'm not saying a full quarterback rotation, but you're going to see a good amount of Nate Johnson. I'd say like an 80-20 split. You have a Ferrari.
That seems a little... 80-20 doesn't... The way you were making it sound seemed like it was going to be like 60-40. 80-20 still doesn't seem like a dual quarterback system to me. That seems like a guy that whenever you're in situational or red zone, you bring him in. And if that's how you're portraying it, then I totally agree. I think Diego Pavia is going to be the guy all year long. Nate Johnson will make multiple appearances every single game just because of his raw athletic ability, and it forces the defense to cover all 11 men on the field.
And then also something I'm not seeing pointed out as much as it possibly could be, Diego Pavia has 1 year, and then he's done. Nate Johnson's a junior. So theoretically, you get Nate Johnson adjusted to this offense. He can improve some of the issues with his passing ability and accuracy. Mm-hmm. And then next season, you have your quarterback in waiting in Nate Johnson that's ready to run the offense. So that's hopefully the path this will go down. Diego Pavia cements himself as the starting quarterback. Nate Johnson is utilized in packages. And then you've built some continuity for the future.
Yeah.
Because that's what Vanderbilt has really struggled with, is finding the next guy at the quarterback position after they lose the guy. You saw it with Kyle Shermer. It's just been a nightmare.
Yeah.
Since Kyle Shermer left, there's been
Absolutely.
no continuity at the quarterback position.
And two, we're still a little bit away from August 31st, but whenever the week of game day hits and they drop that depth chart, I'm telling you guys, and most of you already know this, and it shouldn't really be frustrating. I get that it normally is frustrating because we're like, oh my God, the dreaded or. When are we ever going to stop dealing with the or? Week 1 against Vatech, you're going to have an or between Nate Johnson and Diego Pavia. That's just how it's going to be.
Gamesmanship.
That's just how it's going to be. I think it will always be Diego Pavia. I think this staff knows. If I was a betting man, this staff knows that Diego Pavia is the guy.
We talked about it, or at least I talked about it from the moment he transferred in.
Yeah.
Everybody was still very high on Nate Johnson when Diego Pavia, and people were even saying that Pavia was a preferred walk-on. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I kind of doubt it, but even if he is, I just kept saying, using your brain, the starting quarterback at New Mexico State, who is the conference's offensive player of the year last year, is not going to transfer and follow his former offensive coordinator and head coach to a new university without basically a guarantee that he's the presumed starter. It's just not going to happen. As a human being, why would Diego Pavia do that?
Yeah.
He has and had the job at New Mexico State. He's not just going to transfer to sit on the benches last season playing college football.
You're absolutely right. It's Diego Pavia. I'm very, very excited to see. And we love to talk about Nate Johnson's running ability, rightfully so. Nate Johnson, in terms of, like you said, those attributes that you want from a quarterback, is a freak. Let's not sleep on Diego Pavia's legs. He ran for 1,000 yards last year. This kid can run. Like he's not a pocket passer that can scramble. Like you have a dual threat quarterback in Diego Pavia that I think is going to really help bolster his case. I think he's going to be a little bit more polished of a passer than Nate Johnson at this point. And even though Nate Johnson has the edge on him in terms of the legs, Diego Pavia still can run the ball. You know what I mean? So I think going into week 1, I think going into the season, I think Diego Pavia is going to be your starting quarterback.
Yeah, I was trying to pull up Pavia's stats from last year so I didn't misquote anything and compare them to Nate Johnson's stats. But Pavia's passing stats last year, 221 completions on 366 attempts, 60.4% completion percentage, 2,973 yards passing, 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions with a 147.1 passer rating. Those are solid stats. I know it's a lower level competition that Pavia was playing against. I want to pull up his rushing stats if I can find them anywhere.
I definitely think he ran for over 1,000 yards.
I accidentally clicked on the North Carolina A&T Aggies team stats from last year.
Dude, you know what, man? Dude, this is the TDR difference. You're just trying to go through and find the stats of guys. You're trying to give more football coverage to the fans that deserve football coverage because our beat writer cannot give us football coverage. You just got to bear with us, guys. We're giving it our all.
So last season, on top of those passing numbers I just read off, Pavia also ran the ball 177 times for 928 yards and 7 touchdowns.
Oh, so close to 1,000.
And remember that in college sack yards are counted against rushing yards.
So he probably ran for 1,000.
So he ran probably for over 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
So he's not just a statue in the pocket, and that's what fans have been clamoring for forever.
Yep.
Is having a mobile quarterback behind an offensive line that is going to struggle. Even the best Vanderbilt offensive lines are going to struggle at times, and you need a mobile quarterback back there. I wanted to read off Nate Johnson's stats as well, just for a comparison of experience, because these guys are kind of being equated, both guys in their last couple of years of college football. Nate Johnson last season, 39 of 72 passing for 499 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was a package guy last year. He's never ran a full offense for a program. I know he's coming from Utah. It's a higher level. He also ran the ball 59 times for 235 yards and 4 touchdowns last season. So an explosive guy, but is not proven he can do it consistently. I think Pavia's the guy.
Yep.
You have a storyline you want to pop up next?
I do have another storyline. This is going to teeter on the players to watch, but I'm going to keep it in the storyline. I want to see how this wide receiver room turns out in terms of who is the number 1 and the number 2, and really who's going to be that number 3 guy. So you know that your 1 and your 2 is some sort of iteration of Quincy Skinner Jr. and Junior Sherrill. Is Quincy the 1 and Junior the 2? I don't know. I think right now probably. Could that be flip-flopped? Very possible, and it wouldn't shock me. I want to see who is the number 1 guy and who's the number 2 guy, and I really want to see in turn. I'm about to spit out my Zen. In turn is losing its suction. In terms of who is that number 3 in the wide receiver room, I want to see who that is. I'm going to butcher his name. Luak, is it that kid from Texas Tech? Big body. He really intrigues me. We'll get more into him and players to watch, I think. Is it going to be him, or is it really going to be the Junior Quincy show? And in terms of airing it out, is it really going to be the tight ends that are going to be even more productive than the wide receivers? That's something that really interests me as well. I would like to see how the wide receiver room shakes out in terms of who's that 1, 2, and 3 guy.
Yeah, I'm going to jump into another storyline because you hit on a couple of my storylines, actually.
Oh, damn it.
Mine are a little more in detail or a little more specific on those parts, but
I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to spit out my Zen.
I mean, you're losing your top, 3 targets from last season. You lost Will Shepard, London Humphreys, and Jaden McGowan. So you have a completely new room of wide receivers, basically. I mean, I know Junior, Sherrill, and Quincy were both on the roster last year.
Junior and Quincy might have been more productive than Jaden last year.
I'm going to have to look that up. I'm not 100% sure.
Jaden was rough that year, but you do hit on a good point. Maybe Jaden definitely didn't have his most productive season. He was only there for 2 years. Definitely was not as productive last year as he was his freshman season. But losing that type of speed is insane because you had 3 guys with track speed in Jaden, London, and Junior. Now you really only got, we think, 1 guy with Junior. Then again, I don't know. We'll get into him, but Mr. Micah Bell on NCAA, he's got some burners. So
No, McGowan was the third leading receiver last year. Caught for 383 yards.
Wow.
Yeah, and ran for 109 yards. Led the receivers in rushing yards as well. So you did lose your top 3 targets from last season. So my storyline that kind of relates to that is I just have written down playmakers. So that's going to be guys that can go for big, explosive plays. You lost Lennon Humphreys. That was probably your number 1 explosive playmaker last season. You lost Jade McGowan, was probably your number 2 explosive playmaker. And you lost Will Shepard, who's probably your number 3 explosive playmaker. So you've lost every single guy that can make those big chunk plays for you. I know the offense is going to be extremely different this year, extremely more run heavy. I just want to keep reiterating that because fans are going to be up in arms when they see this offense. It's going to switch from being almost 60% pass, ranking in the top 30 in the country is the most pass plays as a part of your offense. And it's going to shift over to the complete opposite, where you're going to be top 25 in most rush attempts as a percentage of your plays. So who is going to be that guy? Is it going to be out of the backfield? Is it going to be Cedric Alexander, AJ Newberry? Who is going to be the guy that can make those explosive plays? Or do they have those guys in this roster? Is it Micah Bell? Who is it going to be?
Is that a rhetorical question, or is that a question for me? Actually,
it's kind of a rhetorical question. You could also try to answer it, but I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to jump into the players to watch too much.
Yeah. Then we'll get into that later because I think it's going to be him.
So what's your next storyline, Trevor?
My next storyline is going to be the secondary. This is probably on paper the best secondary we've had in a really, really long time. Now, all of a sudden, due to unfortunate illness and injuries, lost two key guys. So really, the safety position is set. You got CJ.
Let everybody know out there the names of the players that are probably not going to be there.
Mike Davis, and I'm forgetting the other guy's name. Marlon Jones. Huh? Marlon Jones. Yeah. Unfortunately, Marlon Jones. We don't really know what's going on with him. It doesn't seem good. It's nothing he did. It's nothing Vanderbilt did. Davis unfortunately had a rough injury. Is he going to be ready for the season? According to our boy Robbie Dubs at 247 Sports, it doesn't look like it. But as of whenever I checked, as I got out of class, there still hasn't been really any reports as to who or what is really going as to who's going on with him, as to what's going on with him. But those are 2 guys that you lose out of the secondary. But really, in terms of the corners, who I'm looking at is I think your number 1 is obviously going to be Colby Taylor, the transfer from Wyoming. That guy is going to be a dog. He already is a dog. I think, and I get it, we haven't seen him in black and gold yet. I'm telling you guys right now, Colby Taylor is going to be a fan favorite. People are going to freaking love watching that guy play. I think Martell Height's probably going to be your number 2. Who's your 3 and 4?
Trudell Berry,
Tyson Russell. Those are your guys. So, makes me nervous. I'm not gonna lie. I want to see how that 4 shakes out. Or is it going to be Colby Taylor, Tyson Russell? We don't really know. That's something that really intrigues me. Also, in terms of the secondary, you have a lot of guys back there that could play safety. Specifically, what I want to know is what are you going to do with DeRicky Wright? Are you going to keep him at safety? Because then it's a little bit of a logjam between Dante Carter, CJ Taylor. You got Steve Shy back there. Brandon Fontenot. Brandon Fontenot's going to play at the Stars, so he's going to play at the second level. So he's already got that locked down. What are you going to do with DeRicky Wright? Is he somebody that you could put at the Stars? Is he somebody that's going to come in whenever they run some dime? You just put him out there kind of as a jackrabbit. What are you going to do with him? I'm interested to see how that plays out. Good problem to have. Good problem to have that many playmakers at those positions to where it could be a problem.
I'm glad you said the secondary. I tried to keep it to 4 storylines, and that was the one that didn't quite make the cut.
Yeah. I was looking at your list, and I'm like, a lot of these I'm hitting on, but I was like, what's one that I want to talk about? The secondary.
Because the secondary, I didn't put it down just because I expect the secondary to take a step forward, a large step forward.
I might say 2 or 3 steps
forward. I don't know how much we're actually going to learn in fall camp about that necessarily.
Like you said, they're going to keep it tight-lipped, so you're not going to know what the rotation is in terms of cornerbacks.
So flipping to the other side of the ball, similarly to how you talked about the wide receiver room, I talked about needing to find playmakers. I think another position battle, not even a battle, but another position to watch through fall camp is tight ends. I think that is a position group that has not gotten a lot of attention. I think it should be getting a lot more attention than it is. You have Cole Spence, who was supposed to be tight end number 1 last year.
Yeah.
Went down with an ACL injury, I believe, and didn't play all last season.
That's correct.
He's back, number 16, full health, going to be going, big body. You also brought in Eli Stowers from New Mexico State, a dynamic vertical threat at the tight end position.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have Tyler Fortenberry. You have Cam Johnson coming back with a new number, no longer number 48, now number 84.
Dude, so much drip
better
on that kid now. Dude, he's going to catch like 10 touchdowns this year.
So you have every type of tight end that you would really want. I think Cole Spence is an all-around type of tight end, but I think primarily more of a blocking guy. He can come out and catch passes, obviously.
I disagree. I think he's your number 1 catching tight end.
Oh, I think he's tight end 1. But when you compare him to Stowers and Cam Johnson, those guys, Johnson's obviously the best most explosive receiving tight end that they have. Cam Johnson, what he flashed last year.
I'm big on Cole Spence.
I am too, but he's more of a, I don't mean he can't go out. I view him more as like a possession receiving tight end. Cam Johnson is a guy you can get it to him on tight end screen and he can take it 75 yards.
Sorry, I misunderstood. In that case, I totally agree.
So you have two more explosive vertical threat type tight ends in Cam Johnson and Eli Stowers, and then you have 2 more traditional type tight ends in Cole Spence, who's probably going to be your tight end number 1, and then Fortenberry, who's a transfer from community college. I think Colin.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
Well, too, also, all these guys are going to get a lot of playing time. I think Vanderbilt's going to run a lot of 12 personnel. You're going to have 2 tight ends on the field a lot. I would say probably that's going to be their base personnel is 12, to where you're going to have some iteration of Cole Spence, Cam Johnson, Cole Spence, someone else, Cole Spence, Eli Stowers. I think, like you said with the secondary, taking a huge step forward, I think the tight end room is going to take a huge step forward this year.
I think there's a lot of positions you can say it's going to take a huge step forward. I'm going to get my last storyline out here, and then you can bring up whatever else I didn't touch on. But this is an obvious one. It's one we talk about every year, but it's going to be the make or break positions for Vanderbilt, the offensive line versus the defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, we had huge expectations for this defensive front, specifically the defensive line, actually a line that could hold up to SEC offensive lines, could create some havoc in the backfield with just rushing your base 4. Didn't happen. Did not materialize at all. The defensive line was atrocious last year, as bad as you could possibly have at Vanderbilt. And then the offensive line wasn't great either. So you brought in some transfers. You have some experience coming back. Seeing the storylines of the offensive line and the defensive line, who gets the better of it, I don't know if you're going to learn anything, but it's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give my last storyline that doesn't actually involve the 11 on either side of the ball. This is a storyline that really intrigues me, and I think this is the most fascinating storyline of Vanderbilt football. I think we know his role. What type of impact does Jerry Kill have on this team? Will you learn that from fall camp? Maybe. I think people actually, and we got to witness it firsthand whenever we went to spring ball, and he is a sight to see. He scared the shit out of me a couple times. I thought he was going to, one play in particular, I thought he was going to kill me. And I was like, oh my God, Jerry Kill is about to kill me. But what is his role with this team? I know he's sort of the assistant to Clark Lee. He's sort of like I know Barton is really the GM of the team. But also, like, Jerry Kill sort of gives that vibe of he's also a co-GM of the team. What is his role? I think you're going to actually get a lot of insight into his role with this team and the impact that he can have on this team by reporters actually seeing him out and seeing him function and seeing how he interacts with the players. I think that's the biggest storyline of them all. Because we can talk about all the players that Vanderbilt got in the transfer portal. Almost all of them I absolutely love. In terms of like transfer portal, just overturn, Jerry Kill is the biggest addition to this football team, bar none.
Chief consultant to the head coach, but basically a de facto offensive head coach.
Yeah.
Is kind of how I would describe him. He's the head coach of the offense.
That's what I'm hoping it is.
He's a guy that, without a doubt, would still be a head coach if health issues and health concerns did not prevent it. Brings in a ton of experience, something Clark Lee lacks severely. So I think he's going to have a big impact and already knows a lot of the players. And you said it, he was a sight to behold at the practice we attended. Very, very involved.
And we need to remember this, guys. Jerry Kill, if probably not for health concerns, I mean, he even did it with health concerns, is a Power 4 football coach. There are teams right now that would hire Jerry Kill to be the head coach of their football team in the Power 4. I guarantee you that. And to have him as an asset on this team, I don't think we talk about it enough how big of an addition he is to this football program.
I agree. Trevor, let's take a quick TDR cocktail break and get to players to watch during Fall Camp 2024. So grab yourself a cold one, and we will be right back. Welcome back from the TDR cocktail break. Trevor, we've grabbed some cold ones. Phoebe has slightly repositioned herself, but pretty much in the same spot before we went to the break. Let's hit on some players to watch during Fall Camp 2024. I have a list of 10 guys here. We don't have to go into super detail on all of them, but we can kind of go back and forth on these players to watch. So I don't have them in any particular order, so I'm just going to start from the top. This is slightly in order. I'm gonna slightly try to do an order. One of the most intriguing players to watch, and I'm putting the caveat on this. I'm not going to be calling out guys like CJ Taylor, Langston Patterson, Diego Pavia, Nate Johnson, because you already know with CJ Taylor and Langston Patterson, they're expected to be the best players on defense. They're expected to be team leaders. Diego Pavia, Nate Johnson, of course, you're going to be watching the two quarterbacks in a quarterback battle during Fall Camp. So these are going to be, most of them, more under the radar names that I think could make an impact this year or could do absolutely nothing. So my number one guy on that list of could be a complete impact player that changes this offense, and you have specific plays for him that can be turned into explosive plays, whether that's jet sweeps, whatever that is, or you could never see him on the field. That's Micah Bell. Came in as a transfer for Notre Dame this offseason, was a cornerback, switched positions to wide receiver. You mentioned who that wide receiver 3 could be or is going to be. Micah Bell is a good candidate for that. It's just going to be, can he develop and transition positions and be efficient? Because he's got speed, he's got explosiveness. We have some cop cars flying by the townhome here.
Phoebe does not like that.
But you could see Micah Bell being a true impact player, very similar to Darius Sims, Jaden McGowan, or you could never see him take a snap in all 12 games. And I really don't know which of those is going to happen. I think you're going to learn a little bit of that from Fall Camp if we get any leaks out of information.
Yeah, he's a great one. He was also on my list. You want me to give you one? I'm trying to look at your list and think of, but this is pretty.
I'm hiding my list.
Okay. I've already seen it for the most part. You know what, dude? I'm going to say it. We know him. We love him. Cedric Alexander. This is going to be, as you said, a run first football team. That game is going to go through Cedric Alexander. He showed a lot of pop last year, a lot of flash. Kid looks like an athlete, runs like a horse. He's going to need to take a huge step forward this year if this offense is going to be any good. The offense is going to be predicated on his ability. Can he carry this team to wins? I'd like to say so. So Cedric Alexander is going to be another kid that I would really like to see have a great fall camp, because I think this offense is going to be really predicated on him.
Showed us quite a few flashes last year. I don't have any running backs on my list of players to watch. The only reason is I think this is going to be primarily a running back by committee situation. Regardless of what happens, I think you're going to see a lot of multiple running back sets, whether that's out of the pistol, whether that's out of whatever wishbone formation they want to throw in there.
I think you're probably right.
But I do like you bringing up Cedric Alexander if he can step in and become that full RB1, because I think teams are more successful when they have one running back that is the traditional bell cow. I think he gets in a rhythm with the offensive line in the same way a quarterback gets in rhythm with the rest of the offense. So I'm glad you brought up a running back, even though I didn't. My number 2, I don't have these in order in front of me, so if I repeat one later on, I apologize. My number 2 is going to be something I haven't heard brought up almost at all. It's going to be Brock Taylor. Kicker. Has never attempted a field goal in a college game, as far as I know. Huge question mark. We know nothing about him. I don't know if we're going to fully learn in fall camp, because kicking in games is drastically different than kicking in practice or at camp. But Brock Taylor having a good season or a bad season could be and will be, I don't even want to say could be, will be the difference in Vanderbilt winning some games. Is going to be if the kicker can consistently knock down field goals inside of 50 yards.
Yep.
That would be a weapon Vanderbilt has not had in a while.
Yeah. The last guy was Riley Gay.
Probably, I would say Bolivis.
Damn, but he wasn't. Why did I forget?
But he wasn't. But he wasn't even that consistent.
Yeah,
he just made some big kicks in big situations, but he wasn't exactly a knockdown kicker by any stretch of the imagination.
That's a really good player to watch. Actually, I really like that. Great selection. I'm looking at your list. A lot of good guys on the list. I'm trying to think of who. Oh, I got one. Issa Wataha. So for those of you that aren't watching, Will's computer's right here, and he has players to watch. And I think there's going to be a lot of overlap because he has a really good list. And I'm trying to go off guys that maybe aren't on this list that I still want to discuss. Issa Wataha is going to be a guy that's going to need to finally take that step forward. I actually have another defensive lineman after that is not on your list, but Issa Wataha is going to need to take a huge step forward. They put him on the edge a little bit last year. They put him on the interior. He didn't really do well at either position. He's going to need to be a guy that's going to finally be that game wrecker. I understand doesn't have a lot of football experience, was very, very raw, was somebody that they had to sort of build up into that pass rusher, into that menace on the defensive front. It's time for him to be that guy because last year the defensive line was bad as a whole, but specifically that interior was really, really bad. That 3-tech was just terrible. Vanderbilt had no pressure on the quarterback, couldn't stop a run to save their life. Issa Wataha is going to be a guy that I'm really looking forward to watching this season to see if he can take that step forward.
Wataha from Germany.
Yep.
A physical specimen. 6'7", I think. 320 plus freak.
He looked like a deity.
He looks like an SEC defensive lineman. Can he put it together this year? I like that one. Not on my list currently. I'll go defensive lineman as well. Since you didn't, since you said you have another defensive lineman after this, I'm going to go Zaylen Wood.
That's the big one.
The MTSU transfer. How involved is he going to be in the rotation? They brought in other guys. You have Darren Agu still there. How involved is Zaylen Wood going to be? Do you think?
I think he's going to be your number one rusher.
You think?
Edge rusher. I do.
I think
the kid's got it.
I hope you're right.
I think the kid's got it.
Who's your next defensive lineman?
So I was going to go Darren Agu, but you took him. But I've got another guy on the defensive front. Just everything defensively so far, except for Seti. I'm going to go Miles Capers. Miles Capers. The fall of 2022. All reports indicated that he was the best player on the team. He could not be stopped. He looked like a freak. Unfortunately, had a bad injury. Not his fault whatsoever. Came back last year, very lackluster. This is a guy that's going to need to have a really good season off the edge. From what you've read about him and from what everybody has said about him, he has the stuff. Can he put it together on the field and be that defensive pressure that Vanderbilt needs whenever quarterbacks drop back? I hope so. So I'm going to go Miles Capers as well.
I'm going to keep it on the defensive line. It seems to be where a lot of this is starting on. My last defensive lineman I have on this list, and I might butcher this name, Corday Sidnor.
Purdue.
The transfer from Purdue had a very productive freshman season, 4.5 sacks, took a step back last season. I'm not sure if that was because of injury or what that was because of. 4.5 sacks as a freshman, 2 sacks as a sophomore. Same position as Zaylin Wood, basically. It's kind of Vanderbilt needs pass rush. They tried to address it in the transfer portal. Are those acquisitions actually going to create a more dynamic pass rush?
Yeah.
That's going because the secondary, we expect them to be much better, expect them to be, I don't want to say the strength because I think the linebacking group can be the strength of this team, but the safeties and corners can be very good in coverage, but all that matters is you have to get to the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
The secondary can only cover for so long, and if Vanderbilt has the same pass rush they had last year, the secondary doesn't stand a chance.
Yep. I got a lot of defensive guys I want to go on that aren't on your list, but I'm going to switch to the offensive side of the ball, but we're going to stay in the trenches. I'm going Chase Mitchell, Liberty transfer. Going to be the left tackle this year. All indications point to him being the left tackle. Can he be that anchor on the blind side that Vanderbilt so desperately needs? I think what that's going to do, all reports indicate also that is going to push Gunnar Hansen inside to a guard position. Do I like that? No, because I'm a big Gunnar Hansen guy, and I think that kid is an NFL left tackle. I really, really do. But if he goes inside, plays guard, does a lot better, and that gives Vanderbilt more protection on that left side of the pocket, then by all means do it. Chase Mitchell from Liberty, left tackle, I think that was a huge addition. I think that's probably, if you want my honest take, I think he's a top 3 transfer portal addition on this entire team.
I almost wrote him down. I'm glad you did. I'm going to combine 2 here.
Okay.
On the other side of the ball, both in the secondary. One more playing the star position, like you pointed out. Dante Carter has been getting a lot of attention. Probably the only or one of the only freshmen who's actually going to make a tangible impact this fall at that safety position. All reports have been he's everything is advertised. Top 160 player nationally, according to 24/7 Sports. He's going to be solid. The forgotten man, the reason I'm combining them is I feel like Dante Carter might be stealing a little bit of his shine as a new addition. The main player to watch I want to point out is Randon Fontenot.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think that transfer addition is getting near enough attention. Mm-hmm. And what he can potentially do in this Clark Lee defense, he could be a game wrecker, a game changer. No offense to the guy. Changing from Jeffrey Hugo playing that star position to Randon Fontenot is an upgrade that is almost indescribable. Randon Fontenot could be the linchpin key to this defense if he can perform at the level I think he's capable of.
I think Randon Fontenot is the biggest transfer portal upgrade. I tell you what, though, I think Jeff Ugo's really good in coverage.
I think he's solid.
I think what he showed last year in coverage, I was very, very, very impressed.
This is always, Trevor, I always like to point this out. You are the ultimate gold-colored glasses. So I like to point out, most of those guys, and a lot of them are returning. Remember, Vanderbilt had a historically bad defense. Most of those guys that were out there playing were fucking awful. I don't care if they showed flashes. The scoreboard and stats tell differently. Most of those guys that played defense last year were awful.
Well, a lot of them are gone.
A lot of them are gone.
Like the worst was Ethan Barr.
It was terrible. I don't know.
He was awful.
I have. If someone can,
so
and he
bad.
transferred to Washington.
Then they didn't take him, so now he's at UCF.
Okay, if someone can explain why another high-level program is bringing him in, I guess it's experience or leadership. He's obviously a good leader. But he was truly the reason that this team allowed so many rushing yards.
That dude sucks.
He could. You know how they talk about linebackers having sideline to sideline speed?
He had none of it.
Whatever the opposite of having sideline to sideline speed is what Ethan Barr had.
He didn't even have north to south speed.
He had Ethan Barr. Watching him last year was like watching if you just plucked a random mediocre high school middle linebacker and put him out there. That is the speed equivalent. Yeah. He's a very strong guy. Solid tackler if he could catch the guy.
Yeah.
The problem is he couldn't close the gap on anyone. No. So gaps were wide open.
Yep.
Once he got his hands on you, solid tackler.
Yeah.
But he couldn't cover anybody, and he could not cover space sideline to sideline.
If this was 1980, Ethan Barr would have been an All-American linebacker.
That might be true. Yes.
This is 1980. He might have been an All-American linebacker.
He was in that Urlacher mold.
He would have had to put on probably 30, 40 pounds to play linebacker back then, but
I'm trying to temper a lot of the there aren't expectations, but I'm trying to just remind everyone out there how bad this team was last year. They do have 53 new players on this roster, but anyone returning outside of CJ Taylor and Langston Patterson, I could make a case for why they do not belong on an SEC roster on the defense. Maybe you could throw in Martell Height just because he was a freshman. But outside of Langston Patterson and CJ Taylor, the entire defense did not perform at an SEC level.
Well, I've got a guy who was on the defense last year that got serious playing time, who's a player to watch that I think was really good this year, and I think it's going to take an insane step forward this year. You going to guess him?
Yeah, let me guess. Yeah, DeCosmo?
No.
Oh, okay.
He had a really good year last year.
Okay.
But not DeCosmo.
Who are you going with?
Linebacker.
I was going to say Prince Colley, but he didn't play last year. I'm forgetting somebody. Go ahead.
Brian Longwell.
I forgot about it.
Brian Longwell is actually, I take it back. Nick Rinaldi.
Rinaldi?
I'm just playing. I'll love the Nick Rinaldi. Shout out to that interception against UNLV. But no, I'm going. Brother caught it straight there. No, I'm going Brian Longwell. That kid played whenever he got snaps. He was very, very impressive. This linebacker group this year is deep as hell. With Brian Longwell being your third, probably third, depending on whatever the hell is going to go on with Prince Colley. I'm not even sure he's a real person, to be honest with you. I think he's an AI deep fake. And anytime they tweet photos of him, they just AI. They just type in the chat GPT, give me a football player that also is built like 19, like Mike Tyson. Give me a football player with Mike Tyson's body, and it just gives you Prince Colley. Brian Longwell, he's going to be another player to watch. I think he's going to take a big step forward. You need him to take a big step forward if you want this linebacker group to be as deep as we hope and think that they're going to be.
You know, I almost wrote down Prince Colley as a player to watch, but then I was like, he seems like a player that you're going to keep hearing is looking phenomenal during fall camp, and then he's going to have some undisclosed injury and never play during the entire season.
Dude, I don't know.
He was brought in as a 4-star transfer from Notre Dame and had some injury issues or some issues last year, and hopefully this year that can change.
Dude, do you remember the hype that surrounded him whenever we got him?
Yes, I do.
Dude, I mean, that was insane hype whenever Prince Colley came along.
So continuing to run through this roster, I'll get my last defensive player to watch out of the way, and then the rest of these are going to be on offense. The last one, we brought him up during the key storylines, but Colby Taylor. I think that's a transfer that hasn't gotten a ton of attention. Cornerback transfer. I think, like you said, he's going to be cornerback 1. Yeah. And you brought in your new CB1, Martell Height, Trudell Berry can kind of rotate on the other side. I think this secondary can take a huge step forward, but that's going to hinge on if Colby Taylor can step into that CB1 role.
Yeah. I think he's going to be a fan favorite.
I think so, too.
We cannot disclose what we saw or heard at practice, but
I have high hopes.
I love me some Colby Taylor. So you're going to go offense. I'm trying to think of offensive guys. I don't want to steal your thunder. I see some offensive guys. I am not going to rip it off of you. I might stick on the defensive side of the ball. We've already said Darren Agu. You know, give me your offensive guy. Let me think about this because I don't want to steal your thunder, but we have a lot of the same guys.
Okay, I'm going to roll through my last 3 here, or at least 2 of my last 3. So 2 of my last 3 are on the same position. It was also one of my main storylines to watch in fall camp. It's going to be Cam Johnson and Eli Stowers. Mm-hmm. Those are guys that are relatively unproven, but I think could be a dynamic playmaker, unlike anything Vanderbilt has seen outside of maybe Jared Pinkney for a brief flash. Vanderbilt has never really had a downfield threat at the tight end position outside of Jared Pinkney. And these guys are even a little bit different than Pinkney was.
Who is that guy during the Derek Mason tenure that had the long hair and played like ukulele?
Oh.
What was that guy's name? Sam
Dobbs. Is that right?
Maybe. He caught a touchdown against Tennessee. I I don't know if you remember. Do you remember Brandon Barden during those early James
Yep.
Franklin? Brandon Barden was a dog. Yeah, you're right, dude. We really haven't had a downfield tight end since.
I was right, Sam Dobbs.
Yeah, we haven't had a downfield tight end probably since Blake Fromang.
Now that's a downfield threat right there.
Thanks, Derek Mason.
But both of those guys could potentially be game breakers for Vanderbilt. They could also barely contribute. I can see both. That's what I tried to find are guys that I could see having big years.
Mhm.
I could also see having unbelievably disappointing years. And that's going to lead into my last one here, which is Quincy Skinner Jr.
I think the biggest question mark outside of quarterback.
Every single year since he has been on this roster, I've been a huge proponent of Quincy Skinner Jr. It has not materialized, whether that has been because of lingering hamstring issues that he's had, injuries, drop problems, whatever it is. Quincy Skinner Jr. has the opportunity to be a legitimate wide receiver 1 in the SEC. He has all the physical tools. He has the size. He has the speed. It looks very natural when he catches the ball. Can he put it all together? I brought up Micah Bell. I brought up Quincy. I think we're both kind of in agreement. We both fully expect Junior Sherrill to kind of take that next step forward. So that's why I don't have him on a player to watch. He was a freshman last season, had a solid freshman campaign. I think we both expect him to take a step forward. But Quincy, is he going to show up or is he going to have another 200-yard receiving season?
Yeah. That's the thing that's so frustrating about him too is whenever he does get his hands on the ball, he's electric. Like whether it's 2 yards or whether it's 45 yards, whenever he is making a play and has the ball in his hands, he is an electric player to watch. So I think you need to get him utilized in this offense.
They're going to try. Can he stay on the field? Can he catch the ball? Those are the big questions, but I'm a big Quincy fan, so I'm expecting a big year out of him. That's everybody I have on my players to watch. Do you have anybody you want to add here before we go over the schedule leading up to football season?
I love the big uglies. I'm going to go Grayson Morgan for my final one. What do you do with Grayson Morgan? I don't know. Where do you put him? I don't know. He did play a lot of tackle last year, even though he was undersized. What do you do with him? I'm really sorry, guys. I'm trying not to burp into the mic. I'm going to add a caveat, and I know we've already discussed some offensive linemen, and it was a storyline. But for players to watch, I'm going to actually just do the entire offensive line. Lasoya, Gunnar Hansen, Chase Mitchell, Grayson Morgan. Those guys are somebody. Dude, shout out to my boy Charlie Clark, who should be starting on this offensive line. I cannot wait for my Charlie Clark NIL jersey to come in. I'm going to rock the hell out of that. The entire offensive line.
Big Kevo Wesley,
who is going to be that other interior guy. That's what I was forgetting. Feels like Kevo Wesley's been here for 10 years.
Xavier Castillo.
I forgot Xavier Castillo's back. Hopefully he shed some weight. Sorry, brother. The offensive line. I'm going to add the whole offensive line.
About to sneeze.
Oh, you're about to say, I thought you were going to talk, so I'll just talk while you're sneezing. If this offensive line can really get it going, this offense is going to be kickstarted into a whole new gear with how they're going to run. Shout out to Diego Pavia. I don't know if you watched that interview he did. He talked about Chris Klanakis, the new offensive line coach, and how he loves him so much and how he's just a great football mind. We've heard a lot of really, really good things told to us about Chris Klanakis. So can he reinvent that offensive line into something that is productive? I hope so.
Yeah, something we didn't talk about enough. AJ Blazik getting a job at Wisconsin.
Insane.
I cannot wrap my head around him upgrading jobs after coaching maybe the worst offensive line in all of Power 4 football. I cannot wrap my brain around it. It's never, listen, there's no Wisconsin fans listening, but if you are a Wisconsin fan and you're listening, it's not a good sign when the entire fan base is not upset about the departure of a coach.
Yep.
And that is definitely what happened with AJ Blazik. Liked him as a guy. No issue with him as a guy.
Oh, incredible person.
But the offensive lines under him were fucking awful.
Yeah.
And so we just need to start calling spades a spade more, and that's going to happen more and more as we inch closer to football season. Trevor, that's about it for players to watch.
Before we transition, just a little fun game. Who do you think? I know we just had day one of fall camp. Who do you think is going to be your favorite player that wasn't on the team last year? You cannot say Colby Taylor because we've already discussed him.
Okay, well, there's an obvious answer to that.
Okay, no quarterbacks either.
Yeah, I was about to say you have.
I'm adding a lot of caveats. No Colby Taylor, no Diego Pavia.
You
or Nate
have
Johnson.
to take Diego Pavia out of that scenario. That's tough because you took. I'm gonna go one on offense and one on defense. I think Eli Stowers at tight end on offense, and I think on defense it's gonna be Fontenette.
Okay, good. I'm gonna go defense. I'm gonna go Zaylen Wood. Offense, I'm going to go Chase Mitchell because I love how he wears goggles.
The big uglies.
I love how he wears goggles.
Trevor's a big fan of the big uglies.
I love watching the boys in the trenches play, specifically the offensive line. I just love trench warfare.
But we have the full previews of the Vanderbilt roster and the Vanderbilt football season coming up. We will be releasing episodes from now on. We were doing them every 2 weeks. We're now back to the weekly schedule.
Dude, we're so back,
dude.
Football,
baby. But so next week, I think we're going to do the offensive preview.
Yeah.
And then the week after that, we're going to do the defensive special teams preview.
Mm-hmm.
And then the week after that, we're going to do a full season schedule preview. And that's going to be our record predictions, all that stuff. And then the next episode is going to be the full Virginia Tech preview. Okay. So that's the upcoming schedule for August. 4 episodes, 4 weeks until football season. Football. I think that's the perfect way to close it out. Football. For myself, Will Byrum, and my co-host, Trevor Hulan, this has been episode 275 of The Door Report, powered by 615 Collectibles.